Hello, my name is Kristin Constable, and welcome to the Soulful CEO Path, where wisdom blends with strategy and success is measured in alignment and impact. This podcast is all about guiding soul-centered bosses like you through the integration of soul and strategy in business. In each episode, we explore the journey of creating a deeply fulfilling business that honors your values, nurtures your spirit, and serves the world. And I am so excited to introduce our guest on today's show. Not only is she a longtime biz bestie of mine, she is one of the most badass people I know. I could get into so many details around why, but I'm not going to for today. You can check her out and you will find out why. Urszula Lipsztajn is a coach and leadership development expert to social change leaders and teams. She helps today's leading impact organizations build personal leadership, elevate their teams, and find whole life fulfillment. She's coached hundreds of people across the globe, worked with really stellar brands, nonprofits, schools, tech startups, you name it. And she's a certified Enneagram practitioner, and her coaching style is centered around powerful, simple practices, BS-free guidance, and a bold, mindful approach to move you forward. So Urszula, welcome to the Soulful CEO Path, and I just love spending time with you. So I know this conversation is going to be awesome. So happy to have you here.
Casey, always a yes to share time with you, one of my favorite human beings, and thank you so much for having me.
This is going to be fun. So today we're going to have a really specific conversation. There's so many things you could offer insight and value around, but there's something that you've been really passionate about recently, I would say in the last few years in your work. And I love the way your depth of knowledge and the way that you talk about this. So I thought we could have a conversation today around the Enneagram. So I know it's a tool that you've been incorporating into all of your work, whether it be one-on-one coaching or leadership development. So could you tell us a little bit about what this tool is and why you've chosen to work with it in your practice?
Yeah, great question. So before I dive in, I want to acknowledge that there's so many schools of thought around Enneagram, and I don't pretend to have or profess to have the one right way. That's one of the things I love about Enneagram, that there's so many scholars and psychiatry and coaching and religion and spirituality all studying this tool. So always welcome that breadth of knowledge. And, simply put, the current definition I'm using for the Enneagram is it's a map of transformation. So something I hear a lot in coaching and here in every rom-com movie really is, I just want to be myself. I want to be able to be myself. I want to be seen for who I am. And the Enneagram provides this incredible map, compass, destination. Be who you are. And I could geek out about it all day. And of all the tools, when I started coaching, I really, this is 15 plus years ago now, I wanted some kind of assessment tool, and none of the tools out there really landed for me. I thought they were maybe too corporate focused or too much focused on quote unquote the good stuff and not enough on, our blind spots or our shadows. Were they closed source? You know me, I'm in the work of decolonizing and creating equity in the world. So I'm always asking, who built that tool and who is it for? And because Enneagram is open source, it lends for so many different voices and perspectives to contribute to the tool. And I've just seen it transform my own life. I've been using it with every single coaching client for the last couple of years and have seen exponential accelerated growth. Mm-hmm. And now I'm using it with teams to do conflict resolution and strengths identification and trust building. And it's this beautiful, rich language that helps people see each other. And then from there, everything else is possible.
Cool. I actually know that the Enneagram is open source. So does that mean that it's always evolving, or how does that actually play out in terms of the application of this thing that I know goes back I think it's thousands of years, right? In terms of where the Enneagram originated and then maybe where it is now. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the symbol itself is quite old. It's several thousand years old, and it hasn't been fully confirmed, the root origins. The tool that we know it today with the 9 personality types is really credited to like late 60s, 70s work, often called mystics. They're like people gathering in small communities to chat about the tool and expand the knowledge. So when I use the term open source, which is used in the Enneagram methodology that I use, which is from IEQ9 Integrative, is that means one person or company organization owns the Enneagram. That means multiple different places folks can interpret that tool and build methodology around it in the way that they're choosing to. So that does create a bit of chaos, but that's why there's, if you Google Enneagram test, you're going to get a slew of different tools, everything from free to the one I use is super comprehensive. But no one org owns the Enneagram itself as a tool. They may own the interpretation of that tool, but not the tool itself.
Yeah.
Which is different than, say, like a Strength Finders, right? Which is owned by a specific company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because even when I go and Google Enneagram, like yesterday, I was just kind of looking at some stuff, and there's like Enneagram for business, and there's Enneagram. There's all these variations of the Enneagram. But as you kind of alluded to, something that is the same is that there's these 9 types. And we're going to get into that a little bit more and how you, I guess, interpret the connections and relationships and dynamics between that might change. But the 9 types kind of stay the same. And is there anything else that stays the same, would you say, across interpretations?
Yeah, so from my understanding, the 9 types stay the same. They may be called something else. There's usually variations on the language, and the symbol itself stays the same. So this is where sacred geometry kicks in. You've got a triangle in the middle, which is, the law of 3. Yeah. To think so many laws of 3s out there. I'm sure your listeners know lots of them. You've got a hexade, which is 7 points, the law of 7 days of the week, etc. And then you've got the circle, which is representative of wholeness, oneness, kind of collective unity. And so that also stays the same.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if anyone wants to go check this out for themselves, you can Google this, and as Urszula said, there's like free or more comprehensive ones that you can check out. But if you haven't done your Enneagram, you're probably like, what are we talking about? Go check out your profile. You'll get a profile with a main type, I think, right? You get a main type and then kind of like wings or subtypes depending on the type of profile that you're going to get. Is that somewhat accurate?
Yeah, well, the magical thing about the Enneagram is as soon as you step on the trail, you're in that choose your own adventure book. And it just opens up like a slew of trails to take. It's really magical, and it can also be really overwhelming in that way. So traditionally, if one had the space, the luxury, privilege, all those pieces, you wouldn't necessarily take a test. You would spend time studying on your own and with a teacher with deep observation and reflection to be able to identify your core type. The reality is for a lot of us, that's not accessible or available. / I want to know now, what is this great test that can show me the way? Yeah. And yes, it will identify. Exactly. Generally speaking, it'll identify your core type, which is your personality expression. So it's not who you are. It's the survival selves, the identity you've put on to get through the world. And we can geek out about that more if you want to. This is where we start swimming in the waters. So generally speaking, you'll get your core type, and then you'll get a bunch of different information. So that core type will identify connections you have along the lines, which are all the solid lines that connect in the middle of the tool. That provides information. You'll get your wings, which are your best friends on either side of your type. You'll highest scores in all of the 3 centers of expression. And I'm just dropping little nuggets on the tool here that each one is its own rich exploration. All to say, knowing your core type, basically, if you think about that wheel, puts a pin like on a map. You put your pin on that map and you start to orient yourself around that tool, and then you pick which path you can take.
Okay. So way deeper than we can get in 30 minutes here.
Oh gosh, so we can swim for a long.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come back to the numbers a little bit and the types, and we'll play with some maybe like case studies or examples so we can really ground this later. But for now, why don't we link the Enneagram to business and to entrepreneurship, because that's going to be the majority of people likely listening to this show. And I know you said it, you see it as a map of transformation. So I know you work with entrepreneurs and, people who are leading organizations from individual and then business perspective, where do you see the biggest benefits of learning and working with a tool like the Enneagram to up level your business results?
The growth is exponential. So I personally believe that the greatest skill any leader can have, and an entrepreneur is a leader, period, end of sentence, is self-awareness. It's not sexy at all. And our ability to see the ways in which we are helping, harming, shrinking, expanding, it will help us be more in, to use your language, in our soul work. So the Enneagram ultimately is a map returning us to our essence. And essence is Enneagram language. Essentially, it's our soul, who we were born into the world to be. And for me, it's like where we're going to shine brightly. So I think it's always important to remember that anyone who chooses entrepreneurship is choosing to say yes to something that matters to them. Otherwise, you just go work for a great company. So to say, yes, I'm an entrepreneur, is you're saying yes to doing something that matters to you, equals saying yes to your soul work. Right. So I think sometimes we don't pause and ask ourselves, what is my soul? Like, what is my essence? What does help me shine? And the thing about the Enneagram is, so we're born in our essence. We're born in our soul. You can think of a beautiful baby. A great Enneagram practitioner named Tony Dutton taught me this. We're born into the world, this beautiful, radiant being. And somewhere between 0 and 5, most Enneagram scholars believe we were told we were too much of something, whether that was your family or something subtle, something loud. So for example, a 7, I know you're a 7. 7s might have been told, like, you run around too much, you don't sit still, stop dreaming, get your head out of the clouds. And we put the armor of our type on around age 5-ish. And that's what we wear to get through the world. It's so young, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised by that.
Yeah. When I share this to parents, they're like, oh gosh, what am I telling my kid?
I can't say anything or do anything. I don't want to mess up my kid. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And we can't avoid it. Like, we put the armor of our type on. I really love the work of Chichi Agoram. She talks about Enneagram as armor. So you put the armor of your 7 on. I put the armor of my 4 on. You listeners out there, you put your own any armor on. And then we navigate the world through that. But you're not, your soul's not a 7. My soul's not a 4. The Enneagram tells us this is where you are and how can you return back to your essence. So if I circle back to entrepreneurship, is you are choosing to do your soul work. And are you doing that from actually who you are? Or are you doing that from this identity expression you've worn forever to get through life? That's how we end up doing things we don't like doing. Like, I thought I wanted to do that. And then we're like, actually, that thing sucks my soul dry. Like, because that's not actually who you are, what you care about.
Yeah. So interesting. And that's one of the things you kind of touched on in the intro, but I think is so cool about the Enneagram is that I remember reading my report for the first time, and it was like, I felt seen and I felt naked and I felt like there's like some like kicks in the stomach around like, ooh, because it's like so true, but it's like putting language to stuff that you kind of know, but you don't want to admit. But there's the beauty of all of it too, right? So it's this real duality, which I love, is that there's always the gifts and then all I guess in Enneagram, I think it's called the shadow, right? So can you talk a little bit about how that kind of works in the Enneagram? And again, if we're linking it back to business, how that might serve to know those things, both the strengths and the shadows.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be in that world. This was maybe 5-10 years ago when Strength Finders was really popular, which is a great tool, not, honoring that, is that we'd stay on like, well, what am I great at? Let's just focus on that and forget the weaknesses, forget that other stuff. The reality is we all have shadows. Someone's told us we were too much of something and we were too little to absorb that and think critically around it. And so we've got our shadows, and they are influencing the decisions we make and the actions we take all the time. Mm-hmm. So, a very stereotype entrepreneur role that we've seen in our world is that hustler, right? Like, I'm going to put my head down, grind it out. I know you've written some amazing pieces around this, and I'm going to burn bridges along the way and I just got to push through nothing. And that's maybe not creating the business we want to be in, especially if we start to bring in a team. Is, there's a classic saying that people don't leave companies, they leave leaders. And if you're a reactive leader, you are reacting to the blind spots of your type. You are not going to create a business that's going to fill you in all the ways you want it to fill you, period. And people, whether they can name it or not, they will sense that, right? So I'll often work with, I work a lot with, C-suite level leaders, and their team hasn't taken an Enneagram report, which is why I love doing teamwork. As they'll say, but I'm pretty sure they're this. And I was like, well, rule number 1, don't type other people, but you can say, likely they're a different type than me. And that means we are seeing this differently. We're going to approach this decision differently. And it's all, when we talk about being in our soul work, we come to some fundamentals, which is understanding ourselves, understanding another, and how that compassion brings us together to move something forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and even if people are not leading teams, it's like you're likely going to work with collaborators or clients or, other, you have to work with other people. So there's this, application, whether you're leading a bigger team or you're just working with clients that feel sticky and you're like, I can't figure out why this particular client and I just can't seem to find our groove. This is a access point understanding. When you understand yourself, then you can understand them as well. So super powerful.
Yeah. Totally. So you mentioned case studies earlier, so I'll just drop a few things. And if folks are like, what's a 2? What's a 4? You can Google that. I'm not going to break down all the types here with you today. But say you're an entrepreneur who is a 2, that's the considerate helper, and you're stuck in your 2-ness, you will overgive. You might undercharge. You will work way more beyond capacity, create quotes that are just really selling yourself short like that. And you're like, I'm a 2. I need to actually learn to set some boundaries here. I need to self-care before I pitch that thing. I need to be mindful of where I'm overgiving. Boom. And all of a sudden you get a more aligned client and more values alignment there on the whole. Same with a 6. 6 can struggle to take risks. So if I'm coaching a 6, say, you see this with coaches, people starting coaching practices. They're risk averse 6. They don't want to put themselves out there. Oh, well, I don't know. I need to keep studying, whatever it is. And you're like, a healthy 6 would take a leap of courage and go for it. And so if you know that, you can say, oh, this is my 6 showing up to make me be risk averse. And I need to take a good deep breath and take the leap here.
Yeah. Those are great examples. And I think that touches on something that is so important when it comes to the Enneagram or any of these kind of tools, is because I've been in organizations that have used these types of tools, and it actually becomes something that's quite negative because it becomes, this person's a this, so they can't do that. Or I'm a this, so I can't do that. We used this other tool in one of my companies, and we were all this one type, and we would be in this meeting and no one was the organized, detail oriented one. So everyone would be like, we need to bring in a note taker. And it's like, no, that's ridiculous. One of us can take notes. So let's talk about that a little bit around awareness versus the typing and then being stuck in your type. So even if you are a risk averse 6, you can learn or work with that to see that that's your preference, but then still take courageous risks. So, if you're a 6, you can for 100% start a business, take a leap, all of that kind of stuff. So maybe can you share how you work with people around that? Because I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the ways, I don't want to call it a mistake, but one of the ways that we limit ourselves in the Enneagram is we say, I need to be the best forever. I need to be the best 2 ever. And that's not the goal, I would say. I guess someone will get their type, and let's say they're a 3, which is the competitive achiever. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a 3. look at all these things I do wrong. I need to stop doing that. And like, oh my gosh, it's super confronting. And I need to be a healthy 3. Well, hold the phone. One, there's a reason for everything. One of the things I love about Enneagram is it's about motivation, not behavior. It actually cares about why we do what we do instead of what we do. And when you change motivation, you really change behavior on a really profound level. Okay. So I use the tool 1 as what do you know about yourself? What is motivating your behavior? And in Enneagram, there's several things that do, but it's either your core fear, your core desire, right? Those are 3 things that can motivate behavior. And when you start to see that your core fear is driving you, right? Like you can shift what that is. So if you're, say we'll use you're a 7 in the world and, you're being driven by a fear of missing out and being limited and suffering in your work, then you shut yourself down to focusing on maybe on one thing. And you start to notice all the ways that starts to show up. And I have a saying I love, which is my own, which is the moment you're aware, you already change what happens next. So you catch that thing and all of a sudden something else might motivate that behavior. So first is always meeting people with that compassion of understanding. 2, it's important to see the ways in which we're causing harm to ourselves and others through our type. And every type is causing harm in some way. We don't even know it, right? Overgiving is a form of harm on some level, right? So you start to see that. And then you stop doing it because with awareness comes a new way of being.
Yeah, cool. So I'm curious to know, and I'm going to get some free coaching here from you because now I'm like, you're bringing up the 7. I'm like thinking about it, but we can make this applicable to everybody. So as Ursula's shared, I'm a 7, which is the enthusiast, get excited about lots of different things, lots of different ideas, not wanting to miss out, wanting to do a bunch of different things. In my work, what I have started to try, what I've done, and although it's uncomfortable, is to really try to focus on one thing at a time, put everything else in a parking lot. But I still find it really uncomfortable. Like I find that really not enjoyable. I'll give a really tangible example here. I was working with a coach a couple years ago, and their framework and strategy was to have one signature offer, go all in on that signature offer, cut out everything else and don't do that. And I did it, and I didn't really like that business model. I found that it was not fulfilling for me to just do the same thing over and over and over again. So yes, I can see that as a shadow and do some things about it, but there's something about the fulfillment of those multiple options that's important to me. So I guess my question for you is the goal to change our motivation and desire so that we can not allow it to negatively impact us? Or do we actually see that that's part of my essence and makeup, that I do like lots of different things and follow that?
Great question, Kristin. So my second favorite and not sexy leadership competency is discernment, which is not a sexy word, but so critical. And so we want to be able to discern. So in the type, the core type is you're the glimmer of your essence. So for me as an intense creative, I'm a highly creative person. It's just not necessarily being expressed in an essence kind of way. I know that may not make fully, it's being, I always think about a sword and you learning to wield your sword. And at first you start chopping at things and then you find there it is and the light hits it and it's glimmering. Right. So that's the work we're doing. One basic fundamental is in order to build muscles break. Right? You think of lifting weights, muscles and fibers need to break in order to build. So elements of discomfort is key. Now, when you use your example with that business coach, is you did it. You were true 7 to say, I'm going to try this out. I'm going for the adventure of one offering. What your soul told you, that's not for me. Yeah. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So you dove in. The thing about 7, so we want to discern. What is my soul speaking to me saying yes? this is expansive, this is what I want. And then actually, no, I don't want that. We need to be able to discern and listen into that. The thing about sevens is the sevens generally benefit from discipline. I'm generalizing here. So it's not that you just have one offering, is what do you see through? Where do you bring in that sense of adventure, that spontaneity that sevens need? Right? Same for me as a 4. I can't have one offering either. It's not creatively stimulating for me. So I got to find that right sweet spot.
Right. Okay. And so I'm hearing in there's not like a answer one way. The piece in it is to really build the muscle of discernment, so you can hear when it's kind of like, I don't know, the analogy that's coming to mind is like, is it that you really want that thing, or are you operating from like an addiction or something that's just like driving the behavior that's unhealthy as opposed to a true desire?
Yes. So this is where motivation really kicks in, because you are motivated by the fear, the desire, or a virtue. The behavior may look identical. So in this case, you might have a fear, my gosh, my business is not going to be successful if I don't choose one offering. Or you might say, actually, I desire to have discipline and focus in my life, and I'll have one offering. Or the virtue of the 7 is joy. I think this will bring me joy. And it's the same behavior. When we start to tune in and actually hear when fear is driving us, and not just fear, but desire is also not necessarily a great driver, right? Desire comes from wanting something to be different. That's not good. Nothing is good, bad, right, wrong here. It's just we want to know and really feel into that. Like, what is propelling me to do this thing?
Yeah. And then coming back to what I hear is what's true. So not coming from a place of fear or desire, as opposed to like, what's your truth? And that's work. That in itself is huge work, right? It's like, and what's cool about the Enneagram is it gives us language and a map, but really, I mean, that skill set, like sovereignty and authority and being the creator of our life. And it's not always easy to discern those voices and those 3 things. So yeah, good luck, everyone.
I mean, it's a magical journey. It's not an easy one. And the cool thing when I think of truth is every core type is going to approach truth differently. And that's where knowing your type is so helpful, because what you're going to discern and tune into is different than for me and the 3s and the 6s and 8s and I'm listening right now. And so to really know, and that's where coaching really helps, is you break it down and you start to tune into that, because it's going to be different for all 9 types.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So I'm sure there's lots of things you could share here, but if someone is listening to this, they go get their profile off the internet and they start to read it. What's one piece of advice that you can share with people so that they don't fall into, I know you said you didn't like the word mistake, but like some of the maybe pitfalls, the application of this knowledge?
Yeah, I've been finding myself lately saying gentle. And let's remember, some core types, so I don't need to geek out too much here, but 8, 9, 1s have underpin with anger, rage. 2, 3, 4s underpin shame. And 5, 6, 7 underpin anxiety. So when you receive your type, one or more of those things may surface for you. And that's going to be different. So you just want to gentle, and then watch yourself from going down the spiral of shadows, which is when you start to remember, oh shit, I did, oh shoot. And you start to see these memories of the past and how you are confronting your type in a not supportive manifestation in those moments. And grace is your friend. The second, just because you got a report, don't just say, oh, the report says I'm an 8, I'm an 8. Pause, reflect. Where do you see that in your life? How far back can you go? What were you told you were too much of? Do some investigative exploration. Actually make sure that resonates with you, because the test I use is extremely accurate. It's a higher end test. Those free ones and the lesser expensive ones may or may not be as accurate. So do some reflection there. What resonates with me? I like to do, yay, that's me. And oh gosh, that's me. And really hold those in balance. And then scan. How am I even receiving this right now? Is that a reflection of the type? I'll see that. So I'll coach a 9 who, wants to harmony, does doesn't want fragmentation, loss, conflict. And I'm like, I read my report and I wanted to make sure that I was in harmony. Like you could see their type coming up as they read it.
Yeah.
And so just like observe and notice that. And then we just want to bring attention to one specific thing. So if there's a word or a sentence in your report, especially if it reflects your leadership or how you're driving your business, commit to spending a week noticing it, where it shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Just observe and you'll change behavior already just by observing.
Yeah. Awesome. That's such a powerful, just easy practice. Well, easy sort of, but like next step, I guess I could say, a great next step process to go through. So it's not just more information that you're not really sure what to do with, is take it into your life, start observing, seeing, reflecting back. And that could be a really nice next step. Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then please avoid typing your partner's family, kids, friends. It's a slippery slope. The way the lines kick in is, a 7 under stress will dance along a line and act like another type under stress. So you might say, for me, like, oh, Urs must be a 2 because they're acting this way. Actually, no, I'm just a 4 under stress. So don't type people and hold yourself with a lot of grace.
Yeah. Great. Clear. So one last question for you that I ask everybody who comes on here, and it doesn't have to relate really to our conversation today, or it can. When you think about being a soulful CEO, either for yourself or with others, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, for me, it's being in alignment and integrity with my heart of hearts, which is another way of saying essence. A question I've been asking myself before I go to bed every night for years is, am I proud of who I was today? It's not about accomplishments. It's more, did I speak the thing that needed to be said? Did I show up with bold kindness today? Did I express the more I do this Enneagram work, the more I feel glitter on my skin. And I start to tune into that. And so living my soul work for sure in my business is, did I feel that glitter on my skin today? And I know what's fascinating is when I live into that, the results are there anyway. The impact that has on the people I work with, the teams that I lead, they go so beautifully together in such synergy. Lights me up every day.
That's so fun. I love that. I love that feeling for you. Little glittery days. And it speaks so much to why you love this tool. The alignment piece is like, this is a tool to support us in building businesses that are actually in alignment with our true essence, not what we think we should be doing or what we thought we wanted, but truly what feels aligned. If people want to dig deeper into this and learn more from you or get more support in this area, where can people find you and what offerings do you currently have available that might be of support?
Yeah, great question. So you can find me at ursula.co, URSZ or ZULA.co. And I have 3 core offerings that are Enneagram specific. So all my one-on-one coaching this tool is integral. Every client does a comprehensive professional report that frames our coaching work. The second is I do team Enneagram sessions where we do foundational pieces for new or restructured teams or folks just learning about leadership. And then we do team dynamics, which really dives into the darker, murkier waters to help find synergy and being able to be better together. And then I've been leading retreats for years. And this year I'm leading my first Enneagram specific retreat is in Tofino on Selkirk territory. There's 2 spots left and that's November 13 to 17. And that will be always an amazing experience.
That sounds awesome. All of those sound great. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your wisdom today on the show. And thank you to everyone who listened in and joined in this episode with us. And I hope you really enjoyed this episode, this conversation around the Enneagram. And hopefully now, if you didn't already know about the Enneagram, you can go check it out. And it's a really powerful tool to add to your Soulful CEO toolkit to help you create that wildly abundant and aligned business of yours. So as always, if you found the show helpful, please hit the follow or subscribe button. And if you're feeling extra inspired today, you can leave a review. It really does help more people find the show and join in these conversations. If you have any questions about what we've talked about, just send me it on Instagram, and I'll link all of Urszula's information that she shared in the show notes below so you can connect with her if you'd like to talk more with her about anything she chatted about today. So thanks again for joining us. I'm Kristin Constable, and I'll see you in the next episode.